What is going on, guys? Stefan here with you, S&E's Garage. Now that our honeymoon phase here with our IS350 is over, let's go ahead, let's give it a good once over, and let's find everything wrong with it, because as you can see here, we do have some issues. Alright guys, so we've had this car for about a week now, and we've gone ahead and put some miles on it, and we have found a couple of problems. Number one, I'm noticing that if the car sits overnight, the brake pedal gets hard, and what I'm attributing that to is the brake booster is probably losing its vacuum somehow. Now, I did call Lexus, I talked to them, I talked to the parts department. There is a serviceable check valve here on the brake booster. You'll see it right there. So that check valve and that grommet can be replaced. So we went ahead and ordered that. That is something we're going to take care of. Next, we have a vehicle skid control, ABS, traction control, and brake warning light that has come on. And we're going to go ahead and scan it for codes and see what's going on with that, just so we kind of have an idea of what's going on, and then we'll get it up in the air, and we'll give everything else a once over. I did go ahead off camera, we did change the oil on this thing. I like to start fresh when I get my new vehicles, so we gave it a nice fresh oil change, and now I know it's got good oil in it, and we're good there. So I did kind of take a sneak peek at some of this stuff, but let's go ahead, scan the code. I have not done that yet. I have no idea what the code is. This just happened like yesterday, last night, and I just kind of let the car sit. I said I don't want to mess with it now. So let's scan it. Let's see what we got going on. So while we're waiting for this X tool over here to do our code scanning, I did really quickly want to talk about these maintenance records. This guy kept every single maintenance record or recall or anything that was done to this car. And we had a chance to go through this over the past week. And this engine has actually been torn down twice. Early 2006, this was the first year of this engine. There was actually a recall on these to replace the valve springs because they could fracture. So this engine was a part for that. It got all new valve springs. And then later on in its life, closer to, I believe it was 70 or 80,000 miles, it had the intake cam actuators or the intake cam phasers replaced. So the front cover was off, and they went ahead and replaced those phasers. So I'm kind of curious to see, once we get underneath it, if that front cover is leaking. I am excited to get up underneath this thing and, you know, really take a good look at it. Like I said, we did change the oil, but I didn't really go over it with a fine-tooth comb. We're going to do that today. So let's go ahead, let's check our X tool, and let's see what the codes are. All right, so what we have here is there's something going on with what looks to be the right rear wheel speed sensor. We have malfunction of ABS, and then foreign object is attached on tip of rear speed sensor right hand. So that is something we are going to have to check out. I'm not going to go over that with a fine-tooth comb in this video. We're just going to kind of check the brakes, check the tires, check the, you know, the car out, check for leaks. Stay tuned for another video. We'll go ahead, we're going to diagnose what's going on with that. Probably something silly, considering looking at the history that I have over there on top of my receiver. An aftermarket shop did put rear hubs and aftermarket wheel speed sensors in this, so there might be something going on there. We'll have to kind of dig into that a little bit deeper and see what we can't come up with. But with that being said, let's go ahead, let's get the car up in the air, and let's start checking stuff. Now, going off of the maintenance records, spark plugs have been changed, coolant has been changed recently, brake fluid has been changed, the transmission was serviced at around 100,000 miles, and the water pump was also replaced as part of, I believe it was the 90,000 mile service. Why the dealer did that, I'm not sure, but again, I have it in the paperwork. So service-wise, this car needs nothing. It is completely up to date with maintenance. The trans should be probably due around 160, but I think we're going to go ahead and take care of that in the coming weeks. I may as well just pick up the transmission fluid from Lexus while I'm getting the parts for the brake booster. So do stay tuned for that. We will go ahead and cover how to do a transmission service on this vehicle. But other than that, and the small issues that we're having, the car has been very well maintained and very well taken care for. So I'm honestly not anticipating there being many issues here. The front brakes were also done less than 5,000 miles ago. If you look at the rotors, you can actually still see the crosshatch on there. So these front brakes are probably gonna, like I said, be like new. But let's go ahead, like I said, let's get her up. So right now we have it up at about chest high, and we're just gonna go ahead and take a look at these brakes, and you could just see how much pad life is left. These pads are literally brand new up here, and this does have the upgraded 4-piston brakes, which is actually really nice. It's like the Brembo style, so they're not sliding calipers, they're fixed, and they have, like I said, pretty big rotors. And again, the crosshatch is still there, and we have a ton of brake pad material there, and we also have a ton, an absolute ton of tread life on these front tires. Unfortunately, these are staggered, so I cannot rotate them, but we were going to try to put these on there. We'll see what happens. Next, let's check the rear brakes. Rear brakes also have plenty of meat. Those are probably like a 5 or a 6 mil, so I'm not really going to have to do anything there, I'm not thinking either. This side also looks phenomenal. Let's go ahead, let's set you up on the tripod, and let's give the front end a nice shimmy shake. Make sure everything here is tight. We're just going to grab the wheel side to side, up and down, and feel the suspension components. All right, so like I said, we're going to grab the wheel at 9 and 3 here, and we're going to shake it side to side, and we're just feeling for any play in the ball joints, tie rod, steering rack, things like that. Everything is tight there, so we're going to grab it at 12 and 6 and do the same thing. Again, everything's tight. Let's go ahead, driver's side, and we will do the same, side to side. Absolutely nothing. Up and down, nothing. We're good here. Let's go ahead, get it up the rest of the way, and let's check for leaks and other damage on the undercarriage. All right, so here we are up under the IS350. What I want you to notice here is these are all factory suspension components. We don't really have any torn boots here. Everything looks good. Our original equipment front shocks are not leaking. Let's go ahead and grab our sway bar end link here. That end link is tight. And then we have the same thing going on here. Original, not leaking. Grab the end link, it's tight. Now, one thing up here that I did want to show you is we do have some minor cracking here on the rear lower control arm bushing. Now, RR Racing and Figs Engineering do make an upgraded bushing for this, and that is probably the route we are going to go, just to stiffen it up a little bit up here and give us a little bit of a crisper turn in. So that is something that we are planning on doing. Here you can see the remnants of our oil change where we cleaned up the little bit of oil that dripped. But what I do want you to take a look at is where this rear main seal is bone dry. Let's take a look up here. Now, in the last video, I actually misspoke. There was not a receipt for a catalytic converter replacement. There was a quote for it. And what I noticed is somebody put a little oxygen sensor spacer or relocation tool in there to pull that oxygen sensor out of the exhaust stream. So there might be something going on with this catalytic converter. But if the light ain't on and it passed inspection, we're gonna leave that alone. But what I do want you to take a look at there is up there, you can see the top of the valve cover and the cam towers. We have no leaks from the valve cover, no leaks from the cam towers, no leaks from the head gasket. Everything with this engine is in very nice shape under here, as is the transmission. Here's our output shaft seal. There is no leaks whatsoever. The rubber disc for the drive shaft is in nice shape, and as is our factory exhaust. It looks like somebody cut the flanges out and put some clamps here. No big deal. That's a satisfactory repair. This car is nice and quiet, and we do plan on keeping it that way for now. So let's take another step back. You can see this flex disc has some minor cracking here. That's something we'll have to keep an eye on, but it does not look bad. And then our axle seals are nice and dry, as is the pinion seal. You'll notice our axles are in good shape. We have no torn boots. And then one weird thing that I did notice here is this car has two different rear shocks. We have an aftermarket shock here and then another aftermarket shock here. So I did go through the maintenance records. One shock was done by the dealer, one was done by an outside shop. Don't know why the dealer or the shop didn't recommend both. I never recommend replacing just one shock absorber or strut. You should always replace them in pairs. So that is something we might have to address. I'm going to drive the car a little more and see if there's any weird, driving characteristics because of that. But it seems to be okay for now. And then also we have a ton of meat left on the back tires as well. Now back here at this corner is where our issue is going to be with that wheel speed sensor. Again, we will be addressing that in a later video, so stay tuned. We're going to try to figure out exactly what's going on there. But other than that, it's very unremarkable under here. We have no leaks to speak of, no damaged suspension components. The brakes are good, the tires are good, and everything seems to be in absolutely fantastic shape. The only rust that I even see under here is this little drop bracket here for the rear subframe, and that looks like it is replaceable. You got 2 bolts back there, and then the main bolt up here that holds the subframe in. You probably just unbolt that and replace that. So if it ever becomes a problem, we'll address it, but right now it's not, and we're gonna keep it that way, hopefully. So now that we've looked under the hood, found something going on under there with that brake booster, we went under the car. Everything under there was pretty unremarkable other than whatever's going on with that right rear wheel speed sensor. Let's go ahead and get in the car and let's talk about some issues in here. I did off camera have time to come in here and give the quick detail, so I wiped everything down. I cleaned up these seats actually really nicely, so I'm super happy with that. But we do have several issues in here. First and foremost being the infamous Toyota Lexus dashboard. This dashboard is definitely by far not the worst that I've seen, but it is not the best either. You'll see some flaking and some cracking there. We have a crack forming from the corner of the radio bezel, and then we have some nicks and scratches here. Like I said, I sprayed this down, I wiped it down a little bit just to get some of the dust off of it. But if we're going to be keeping this thing for any length of time, if this does get worse, I will probably end up trying to put a dashboard in it, as I don't think it's as big of a job as many people make it out to be. It's probably something I could take care of in a couple of hours. We also have the same going on here with this passenger door card. It is also showing the same signs of wear as the dashboard, whereas the driver one is actually in beautiful shape. And then we have the same going on back here. This back one is also starting to flake and chip, whereas the driver's side is not. So if I had to guess, the way this thing was parked, the sun was probably coming in and beating on this side of the car and caused it to weather more on the passenger side than the driver's side. Now we do also have an issue here with our navigation screen. Unfortunately for us, that touchscreen does not work. I have a couple of different options. I can replace the digitizer. We basically have to pull that whole navigation unit out, peel the screen, the top layer of the screen off, and then replace that. Or I could just throw a whole new used navigation in there, or what I am leaning towards is probably trying to update to something that has Apple CarPlay to bring this thing into the 2020s, because I've relied pretty heavily on Apple CarPlay. My 07 Camry that we sold, I put an Apple CarPlay head unit in that, and I definitely don't see myself not doing the same with this. Now let's address one other elephant here in the room. We took these god-awful American racing wheels off. I did go ahead and throw the wheels and tires from my GSF, the factory GSF wheels and tires on here. And to make the front wheels fit, we did have to run a 3 millimeter wheel spacer because the back of the rim was hitting the steering knuckle, believe it or not, just because of how wide the GSF wheels are. So we have, I believe these are 19 by 9 inch wheels in the front with a 255 tire on it. And then we have the 19 by, I want to say it's either 9 or 9.5. They're wider than the front, obviously. No, they're 10 actually, 19 by 10s in the rear with a 275 tire. And we do have some slight rubbing in the front on full lock, but you'll see it actually sits really nice. I might leave these on there, I'm not sure. But on Tuesday, we are going to pick up a set of factory takeoffs from a 2007 or 2006 IS350. And I am planning on putting these tires on those wheels. That way I have a set of stocks, and then I have these to run if I like. So again, overall, I am super happy with this purchase. I think this car is going to make an absolutely fantastic commuter. Like I said in a previous video, going from the GSF to a 4-cylinder Camry was absolutely killing me. And now that I'm going to have this to drive, it'll have a little bit more power, actually almost double the power as the Camry did. I'll have the heated and cooled seats that I have in the GSF, and I'll have some of those creature comforts that I'm accustomed to in the GSF in my commuter now, which is super nice. I'm willing to bet that this V6 is going to get similar mileage to my Camry, considering that it's in, number one, a smaller car, and number two, it has an additional gear in the transmission to go ahead and help it stay in a lower RPM. And this is not my first 2GR powered vehicle. I am no stranger to them, and I know that on the highway, once you set cruise control and start cruising, I do know that they actually do get really, really good gas mileage. So if this video interested you, please like, share, and subscribe. Definitely stay tuned. We do have content coming with this thing. We're gonna go ahead and figure out what's going on with that wheel speed sensor. We're gonna go ahead and figure out what's going on with that brake booster. And we're gonna go ahead and start, you know, doing some maintenance on this. We got everything we need now to do the transmission. We're gonna do a transmission service. Probably gonna service the rear diff just to say it was done. And then I do have a little bit of Brembo brake fluid left over here that I should probably use before it goes bad from sitting on the shelf. So maybe we will go ahead and do a brake flush on it just to say, again, we did it. We know it's got good fluid in it. So like I said, like, share, subscribe, stay tuned. Plenty more Toyota Lexus content coming your way. Comment down below, let me know what you think, and we'll see you next time.